What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a longtime assistant coach with a great basketball mind, an excellent talent evaluator, a future head coach in this business, and a native of Baltimore, Maryland, Jamal Brunt. Now, Jamal, you talk about his resume. He's, played college basketball at Randolph-Macon, and he actually played for Mike Rhodes, the guy he actually currently works for now. And once he finished, he had some people in his ear probably when he was younger, and even Coach Rhodes, while he was playing, they figured out that, you know what, his best path in life is probably to be a coach. And so right when he finished playing at Randolph-Macon, he becomes an assistant coach at Randolph-Macon, and he spent 2 years there at Randolph-Macon, and before moving over to University of Richmond, where he spent 2 years there as the director of basketball ops, before becoming a full-time assistant coach, where he spent, 6 more years as an assistant, and then, 2 more years as the associate head coach. So spent some time at the University of Richmond, where they did an outstanding job there, had some terrific players, went to a couple of NCAA tournaments, and then from there he goes to the University of Miami, and he spends 3 years at the University of Miami as an assistant coach with Jim Larinaga, before coming back, having a chance to work with Mike Rhodes again at VCU, where he's presently been there for 2 years, getting ready to go in year 3. They're continuing the success at VCU. I just want to welcome to the show a guy I've been knowing for a long time, probably Richmond days, going back to then, Jamal Brunt, who's one of not just a long-time assistant, also a young guy. So he's even though he spent a lot of time in this business as a coach, he's still young enough that, one day I'll see him as a head coach on the sideline. Welcome to the show, Jamal.
Appreciate it, Lamar. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Look, we're going to get right into it. We're going to go and let's get unmasked. Like I said, I've watched you from afar for a long time. You go about your business the right way. You handle it the right way. And we all know this. You jump right into it. You went from playing to coaching. And so some of those guys that you actually played with, now you're coaching. But there's no handbook to being a college coach. Tell me about first day, first week, first month, after things are done with human resources, and especially no one gives you direction. Talk about that, man, when you jump right into coaching.
Obviously, it was a unique adjustment for me because guys that had been my teammates for 3 years, now, I had to kind of separate myself from them and no longer fraternize or hang out with them in that capacity. Needed to create that player-coach dynamic, and instead of just being friends, and make sure that I kind of put myself in a position to command that level of respect. I would say the thing that helped me was, I was a team captain, my sophomore, junior, and senior years. So, I kind of had a little bit of that leadership role, and coach, allowed me to have a great voice. So it wasn't too tough of an adjustment for me. I had teammates that understood and knew my passion, and I wanted to be successful. So they helped me along with that. But it was definitely a unique adjustment, man. I tell everybody all the time, I graduated from college. I went home for a week. I took my graduation money. I bought a car. I drove back down. And because I hadn't gotten my first paycheck yet, I actually was living in the previous assistant coach's apartment that was completely empty, other than I think a couch and an air mattress, because it was already paid for. His lease was paid out, so I stayed there until that month was out, which allowed me to kind of work and then get paid. For those that don't know, a lot of universities are getting paid once a month. So I had to work a month before I got my first paycheck, and then I was able to kind of get my own apartment and all of those things. So it's definitely, like I said, it was a tough adjustment because it happened so quick. But I was lucky enough to work with my former coach and actually coach some of my teammates.
Awesome, man. I know you handle it very well. We talk about recruiting, man. It's a lifeline of college athletics. You got to get good players, good people if you want to be successful, if you want to win. And I'm going to say that. I mean, we all know that. I mean, winning is the bottom line. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, we as, assistant coaches or even coaches on that time, we know about the other stuff about we want guys to graduate, we want guys to get degrees. That's why we're in this business. But you got to recruit good players and good people. Talk about what was your best and worst recruiting stories. And it's not always the people, but you might just have an insight on recruiting that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, I think one of my worst was probably my time. I was working at Randolph-Macon, and we used to always go out on the road and make huge recruiting trips and swings. And so I would literally drive up to Boston, where I had a couple friends from college, stay there, hit a couple prep schools, and then I would just literally just start working my way back down south. So every kid that we had saw at like Hoop Group or one of those events, to try to reach out to them, set up something, even if it was at their home. So I ended up visiting a kid in Long Island, New York, and but because of the budget, we're not staying in hotels. So I was staying with a buddy of mine that night who lived in Stamford, Connecticut. So the best way to get back across that time of the day was to put the car on a ferry and take the ferry back over to Connecticut. So I leave this kid's house, and I had been ripping and running all day, and nature called. And so I'm scrambling around to try to figure out where to go, what exit to hop off of. Obviously, this is before GPS, so your directions are basically all MapQuest. So I'm nervous about going too far off the beaten path, because then I'm not going to get back in time to make sure I make this ferry for the car to get back over there, because it was the last one of the day. And man, to make a long story short, I ended up ripping and dipping and dodging through traffic and then turning down a corner. And I finally found, last minute, I found a store. And I couldn't tell you how quickly I ran out of that car and sprinted into that place so fast, man. But it was, I was sweating bullets. The people, when I walked in the restaurant, they probably were looking at me like I was crazy. But man, that always has stuck out in my mind, to make sure I give myself ample time and don't run around too much without taking some time for self. So my best story, I would say, you get so many of them, but some of your greatest recruiting stories are always the ones where you kind of go see a guy that maybe you weren't sure he's going to be as good as he is, and you're blown away by how good of a player it is. So, one of those stories that stands out was a guy, Kevin Anderson, that we coached at Richmond. I had a chance to go see him play, and it was like a district game, so it was just before they went to the state playoff, and they ended up losing the game, but they were still going to the state tournament. And the game was so easy to him. Great change of pace. Never looked rattled, in complete command. And I remember coming back from that trip, and Coach Mooney had put a lot of pressure on me to say, "Hey, is he good enough? We got to decide. What do you think? What do you think?" And I remember telling him, Coach, I think this kid is an all rookie team guy. Now, it helped that he was rookie of the year, but I think that was one of the early stories that kind of solidified my relationship with Coach Mooney, and him trusting my eye with regards to evaluating players, and it probably helped me or allowed me to move up while I was on staff, because that happened so early on in the process.
Awesome. I still got to, did you make the ferry is what I want to know.
Yes, barely made the ferry. Barely made the ferry. I think it was like my car was probably one of the last like 4 or 5 cars to get on there. And when I got back over to Connecticut that evening, it made for a great story with my buddy. So he still laughs about it to this day.
And Kevin Anderson was a terrific player, by the way. That was an awesome get at University of Richmond. We all know this too, man. Like being a coach, you consume a lot of time. Like you're probably 355, 360 days out of the year. You leave the house on the phone. You come home on the phone. If some guys do that. Some guys like once I'm in the house, I'm shutting it down and spending time with my family. But we still know like it's a huge grind. What did you have to give up, and I use this word more now than give up, is sacrifice, achieving your current level of success? Like, what did you have to do? Sacrifice.
Yeah, I think the greatest sacrifice that you immediately make is just like your personal life. You're gonna miss friends getting married. You're gonna miss relatives' birthday parties. You're gonna miss maybe celebrating your parents' anniversary. Like, I tell people all the time, all my friends know, if you don't get married in May or June, or sometime in mid to late August, then I'm not going to be there. And it's funny. I think if you look at the landscape of college basketball, there are so many college coaches whose anniversaries are in August, because there you go. There you go. That's the time you could do it. So you're going to sacrifice a lot of that family time. And then when you have your own family, it becomes it becomes a lot tougher, because the decisions you make, they impact, the lives of everyone else. I think when you're young as a coach, you don't care. I'll go to Timbuktu if that's the best spot for my career. But once you have a family, you got to factor those things in as well. But you're constantly weighing the pros and cons of how much of myself do I give to everybody else and not give to my own family. And so trying to find that work-life balance is tough. I still struggle with it, myself. I think I've gotten a lot better at it over the last couple of years, but like I said, it's still something that I work at, and my wife helps give me a reminder here or there to remind me of like how important it is for me to spend time with my family.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, like you said, I got engaged as a high school basketball coach. We were set to get married that next October. I get a job in May, and that got easily moved back to August, and we got moved up to August right away in that same year. So yeah, you're right about that. I would say a huge percentage of guys got anniversaries in the month of August. I would definitely say that. Talk about scouting reports, and those are huge too, man. It's all about preparing your guys the best way you can, and you got to understand your team. You work for different guys, so every coach isn't the same when it comes to scouting reports. Some guys want certain things. Some guys they're very detailed. Some guys just like, hey, give them enough information that they can remember. So it's all different ways that you can do scouting reports. And then it's always the guys, when you get into scout reports, like guy haven't played in a couple of games, or a guy's struggling shooting, and then all of a sudden you tell coach, you're talking to the guys, and they made their last 3 out of 25 or 3 out of 30, and then turn around and the game that you got a scout report, this dude makes 3-4 threes, and coach turning around looking at you like, I thought he couldn't shoot. No, I didn't say that, coach. I said he's struggling shooting. And so talk about your best and worst scouting reports. And it doesn't have to be some particular special game or any specific game, but talk about scouting reports in general, or just your best and worst over the years.
Man, it's funny, the story that pops in my mind because of what you just mentioned about a guy not being able to shoot. I was at Richmond. I've been moved up to an assistant coach. It was my scout. We were playing Temple, and this was maybe one of the first couple of years, Coach Dunphy. He had stepped in for Coach Chaney. They had a player by the name of Ramon Moore. So, Coach Chaney didn't really play freshmen. So Ramon, I don't think he played at all, even though he was a big-time scorer, I think, in Philadelphia Public League. But he didn't really play a lot as a freshman. And so that next year, he had kind of worked his way into the rotation under Coach Dunphy. So it's conference play, and maybe it's fairly early in conference play, maybe like the 6th or 7th game or something. And up until that point, he had probably made like 5 threes on the season. And so I'm like, we're going to play him as a driver. He's getting to the basket, whatever. He ends up making, late, might have been like a late clock first, made a 3 late clock. Then next thing you know, he kind of starts getting in a groove. Guy doesn't close him out hard. He bangs another 3. Now coach and all the players are looking at me. By the end of the game, he might have made 3 or 4 threes in that game. And he went almost like doubled how many threes he made on the season just off the one game against us. And fast forward, we ended up playing them in a conference tournament. And he had made, I remember doing the scout again, and he had probably only made 15 or 16 threes up until that point. So I was like, man, after our game, he barely made any threes. And then we played him in the conference tournament. I think it was the semifinals. He probably made like 2 threes against us again. So, you try to be as detailed as possible with your scouts. You don't want to oversell a guy. You want to give guys the best idea on how to defend them. But, guys are college basketball players, and, these guys are typically on scholarship for a reason. Most of them, especially guards, can score. And so, a guy's going to have a night like that. But Ramon Moore, and I felt like that game against us catapulted his career because he went on to have a phenomenal career at Temple. So that always stands out. And then, I would say my best scouting memory would be the very next year in the Atlantic 10 Conference Tournament. During that time, the tournament was in Atlantic City. And for whatever reason, every team we played was my scout. So I had every scout. I believe it was like UMass, Temple, and then Dayton. And, we ended up winning the Atlantic 10 championship that year. And so that was just a great memory because, when you're at those tournaments, you're up super late every night trying to prepare everything for the players. And so, to have 3 in a row, is tough. But, every time you get that win, you get that next, that high, that bolt of energy. And it got me through it. So just looking back on that time, it was so gratifying to know that, you feel good about how you did your part to make sure everybody was prepared for the game.
So true. And I feel you on that. I've been through that next game. You got to in the tournament. Like, it just, sometimes I would say, are you lucky or you're unlucky that you get to draw all of them? You know what I'm saying? But guys pitch in. That's the one thing about when you're on a good staff. They're going to try to help you as much as possible as well, if they can. Because you've done most of the, you've done more of the homework, the base. You've had them all year long. So it's just, some extra stuff to, guys come in and help. But, yeah, I feel you on that one, Jamal. I definitely feel you on that one. Biggest challenge, man, you think you've experienced? I don't like everybody thinks it is, but what's the biggest challenge you think you've experienced?
Man, biggest challenge I think I've experienced, was probably during my time. I was at the University of Miami for 3 years. And the last year, there was a big investigation into college basketball. And so to find out that Miami was implicated in that, although, Coach Larinaga, Coach Jim Larinaga, everybody knows his background, knows he's, committed to doing everything right. He has for all of his career, as a head coach, phenomenal track record of compliance. And so for us to be mentioned and, thrown into the thick of that, people don't understand how greatly that impacts everybody, everybody involved, the head coach on down. And so our entire staff was, it was a lot of stress. It was a lot of anxiety, just trying to figure out, like, where is this coming from? How did we get here? Luckily, as time went on and everybody saw how it played out, the truth was heard that, Miami had no involvement in any of that stuff. But, it was hard, man. It was hard when your name is tied to something like that, how people quickly turn and treat you differently, and, maybe treat your family differently. My wife, the daycare asking me questions about it, daycare parents, that had previously talked to my wife about play dates, all of a sudden, not speaking a word to her as they walked by. So it was a tough time. It was a tough time, but, I will say that, coming out of it, I think it made me a better, better coach, better person, better father, better husband, because it made me realize that, my career isn't the end all be all of everything. And, I hope whenever my time comes and I'm called home, that there will be a number of players I've coached or people I know through the profession that say, man, this guy was a good dude, but at the end of the day, man, when you're going through the thick of anything, it really hits home that your family is what you got. And so it made me realize that I needed to find a better balance and really pour into my family even more, and realize that, how you're remembered as a father and a husband will go a lot farther than, how you're remembered as a coach.
I'm glad you shared that. That's actually great stuff, and hopefully people learn from that. Like just what you're saying. A lot of times people don't understand that, or they forget that, and I hope that like I said, the listeners listening, are hearing that, because that's just powerful what you just said. Do you ever find that things about you that people misunderstand? Because I see you, I know you, I've been knowing you for a while. I know you come in the gym, and it could be anything, but I see you come in the gym. Hey, you speak, you're friendly, you're cordial to everyone, but you're about your business at the same time. You find out that there are things about you that people might misunderstand. Like, what are they?
I think one of the things, some people might view as being quiet or standoffish because you do try to go and do what you're supposed to do. Very early on in the coaching profession, Coach Rhodes used to always say to me, like, hey, when you're on the road, you got to do your job and evaluate. You can't just be sitting over there fraternizing and talking to your friends the whole game, and then you walk away and you don't know how good that player is, and is that guy going to really impact things for us? So that's always stuck with me, and I try to do I take pride in evaluating players and trying to, make sure I can kind of give a full description of what I see or how that guy can help our program. So that would probably be the one thing. Like, some people who don't know you, they may think you're a little standoffish, but, I would say, the longer I've gotten in profession, you kind of get better at your job. You can do maybe a little bit of both. And I've always tried to talk to some young guys here and there, to make sure that if they have questions or if I can help them in any way. Now, I'm not saying I can be the difference in a guy getting a job or something like that, but I can try to impart some knowledge that I've learned or was passed down to me. One of the things that has always stood out to me was, like, when I first made the transition to being an assistant coach at Richmond, I was at a high school up in Northern Virginia, and I just bumped into a guy. He was a coach at Xavier at the time. And he kind of asked me, he was good friends with the high school coach there. And he's just like, has anybody talked to you about how to recruit? And I was like, not really. I recruited Division III. He was like, no, it's not the same, and he just was like, here's my number. This is what you need to try to do. These are the people you need to try to meet, blah, blah, blah. And that guy was Kenya Hunter. And Kenya and I are great friends to this day. And I'll never forget him just taking the time to try to show me the ropes a little bit. And that really helped me. It gave me a blueprint of how to attack being an assistant coach at Division I level. And not to say that I wouldn't have figured it out, but it definitely helped me figure it out a lot faster. And so I always try to, do the same thing if I can, have the time and like I said, meet as many people as possible. But like I said, I think, when you kind of go in and you say hello to a couple of people and you go watch your games, some people can kind of take you as being a little standoffish or antisocial if they don't know you a little bit.
I feel you. And Kenya Hunter is a great guy, man. He is definitely a great guy. Fortunate to get him on the show as well. So that's a plus. I just love having good guys and having them tell their stories. So, like you said, Kenya's always got to try to help young guys in this business. We're all educators, man. We're teachers. Someone helped you along the way, or they taught you some things, not just basketball-wise, but off the court as well. Like, what do you try to teach or educate to your players besides basketball?
Yeah, I would say, the game of basketball is obviously played by a lot of guys that have unique backgrounds or different circumstances. Basketball for me, even though I didn't play Division I, it gave me an opportunity to focus, right? If I didn't play basketball, would I have, playing basketball made me have to do well in school so I could stay eligible. It made me have to do well in school because I wanted to play college basketball. And so the thing I've always tried to impart on my players is that we got to take advantage of the opportunities we have, especially as African-American males. You get the opportunity to go to college, take full advantage of that. And, one of the things that has kind of always stood out to me is that I try to remind guys like, hey, you and I, I'm one bad decision, you're one bad decision to us both being, for me, being back home in Baltimore. For that player, it could be, any major city. I had a long talk one time with Bruce Brown when I was at Miami, like, hey, just because these people drive all these fancy cars down here and they live in these big homes, it doesn't mean that that's what we're just destined to have automatically because we're here. We still have to make smart decisions. We still have to try to take full advantage of the opportunities that we do have, academically, athletically, all of it. And that's one of the things I've always tried to impart on players because, the worst thing is for a guy to play 4 years of college basketball, he leaves with no degree, and now he's right back where he started with no plan to move his life forward. So that's the main thing that I've tried to drive home to any young men I've recruited or been fortunate enough to coach. Like, it's bigger than basketball. Yes, some of you may play professionally, whether it's in the NBA or overseas, for a long period of time, and I hope you it provides a great way of life for your family. But we have to make sure that we're preparing these young men to be upstanding citizens, because the bulk of their earning life will be after basketball, not during.
So true on that. So true. What are your best and worst memories in coaching?
Oh man, so many great memories. I'd be kind of selling a lot of them short, and the people that helped create them short if I just named one. But anytime you forge a great bond with a staff and a team, and you can achieve championship level success, making it to the winning game in the NCAA tournament, making it to the Sweet 16, anytime you can do something like that, man, you're talking about a special bond that you make with not only those players, but everybody on those staff, everybody on that staff for the rest of your life. So I've been fortunate enough to work with great staffs, and with some phenomenal head coaches, and coach some great young men. So all of the memories, I think, over my time at Richmond, making it to the Sweet 16, the first year we were 13 and I want to say 13 and 17, maybe the second year, 8 and 22. And then you talk about, 3 years later, you're in the Sweet 16. I mean, that's a great memory. At Richmond, at Miami, we went to the Sweet 16 and we ended up losing the eventual national champion Villanova. But, that team was probably top to bottom one of the most dynamic and talented teams I was able to coach. And then we actually, we went to the tournament the 2 years after that. So, the 1 year we weren't expected. I think we were picked pretty low in the ACC, and we still made the NCAA tournament. So those are memories I have with those guys forever. I still stay in touch with all of those players there. And then here at VCU, to be back with Coach Rhodes, get a chance, to work with the staff that we have in Brent Scott and JD Byers. I think great staff, and we just have great people, guys that you really want to be around, guys that really pour in and try to help, the young men that we have. And, to get to the tournament, and win the first Atlantic 10 championship outright, there's a bond that you have with those guys that'll never go away. It's hard to believe with all the success VCU has had, that was the first A10 outright championship ever for the university. So we really, we're really all connected in that way. And so that's why I said I'm fortunate enough to be around a lot of winning and a lot of great coaches, great people, great young men. And so, like I said, I think those are the best memories I have. Worst memory is anytime you kind of feel like you underachieved or you help someone achieve their potential. So it's, you always replay those things in your mind. Like, man, this kid, he had so much promise. I wish I could have did more. I wish I could have helped them more. So it's, not one thing that stands out, but for me, those are all of the things that I think about. Like, I think about the young men that were, good players, but probably could have been great players. If I reached them better or motivated them a little bit better, or guys didn't perform well academically and stuff like that. You wish you gave them better guidance, but yeah, man, so many memories over the years. I think this is coming up on year 17 for me, so I can't just pinpoint one or the other.
Yeah, those are awesome, all awesome answers, man. So I feel you. I mean, that's why I didn't say the best. I said best. So awesome answer, man. What's the strangest, weirdest, wildest thing you may have seen that a player's done outside of the basketball court? I mean, you don't have to be specific, no names, but trust me, you've been in it long enough. You had some moments like, wow, I can't believe this guy did this.
Man, that's a good one. Try to think here. Just the wildest thing. I mean, you have players that, supposed to be showing up for a shoot around, and you calling around to try to figure out where they are, and come to find out the guys, went home the night before and he's driving back, or, didn't stay in his apartment like he was supposed to, and he's overslept at a girlfriend's house or something. So I can't think of one right off the top of my head that you would say, man, what in the world was that guy doing? But, it's just little things like that happen that probably, for us, it happens so often that you don't think it's that crazy, but to somebody else, they might say, man, I can't believe that guy did that. You know what I mean?
I feel you. I feel you're right. You're so right on that. And I like to ask this. I've kind of it switches up with however I feel, and I like I said, I think you got a chance to be a head coach. You've worked in this. I'm listening to it. Like you worked with Mike Rhodes, with Chris Mooney, with Larry Nager, and so you're still back with Mike Rhodes now. But like, if you got a chance to get your own program, but like you want to, sit down. I know you've been to some of the Villa Sevens and all the new things now, but like, if you had a chance to sit down with three guys for like a couple hours at lunch, you wanted to pick their brain just to see how they did it, because you're gonna create your own niche, run your own program. But like some things you would just want to ask them or sit there and talk with them about how handling being a head coach in this business. Give me three guys that you would be like, all right, these are the guys I want to sit down with, have lunch. You've been with three guys already. It's really good. But who would you say, man, I want to sit down with those guys and like just pick their brain?
Well, the guys I work with, I have been fortunate enough to pick their brains often. So, and I've taken a lot from all of them, especially Coach L. Obviously, the wisdom and the knowledge and the wealth of experience he has. I learned a ton just being on recruiting trips with him and sitting down with him. But there's so many coaches that I just greatly respect from afar, the way they go about their business. I've had a chance to talk with Tony Bennett before, but I've never really had the opportunity to sit down and really pick his brain. Just the way they go about their recruiting and, staying true to who they are and never really swaying. Not to say that they force players into who they are. They recruit players that fit who they are, but there's been such a consistent culture, and they've lost some players that maybe were talented guys, but didn't fit their culture and they never missed a beat. I'd love to talk to them about that. Man, you put me on the spot. I've had a chance to sit down at dinner with other people and talk to Jeff Capel before, but never just one-on-one. Obviously, just have phenomenal respect for him, being a head coach at such a young age and being so successful, and then, going back to being an assistant and probably being one of the most successful assistant coaches in the country during that time frame. And obviously being back to a head coach now. I had a chance to listen to him speak at one of the Villa events, and he kind of touched on that, that transition back. And, I would love to kind of talk to him a little bit more. And then, I've always had great respect for Michigan State, Gonzaga, the people that just find a way to be so consistent in what they do. And it's just hard. It's hard talking to a lot of coaches you don't know in college basketball because everybody's typically so guarded, about what they're going to give you. But I'd love to like pick those guys' brains in a moment of complete transparency, just to see, the bumps in the road and, how they got past those things and, what are some of the things that maybe they regret or wish they had done better, and why they feel like they're so successful. So, that's the part of coaching I enjoy the most, because there's so many ways you can be successful. And if you look across the landscape of college basketball, so many guys have done it differently, but really still won and been very successful at a high level. So that's just a few guys that come to mind.
And those are great names. And that's what I was saying. It was like, you're going to create your own niche anyway, but it's always, trust me, Izzo talked to certain guys, they learned. They talk to guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they, you said it, guarded was the right word. They're not always going to give you the best secrets, but they'll help you out a little bit when you do talk to them. And but I just think, like I said, with you, just seeing you, I just think you're going to be a terrific head coach one day. I truly believe that. And so that's why I was like, all right, who would you want to sit down with? And it's so many guys in this business that, you know, I definitely put you on the spot, but I knew you'll come through and come up with some guys eventually. That's just how it is. What's your favorite word or phrase that like you like to use, or, you know, like you like to say as a coach?
Man, somebody said this to me years and years ago, and it's always stuck with me. A friend of mine from Baltimore, she actually said the proof is in the sacrifice. And so I always use that when players talk about how good they want to be. You know, I want to play at the next level. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, you know, don't tell me the proof is in the sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice? Just like we talked earlier, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up to push toward that ultimate goal or dream? And it's just the fact, like, you're going to have to give up something, you know. So for players, they got to give up, you know, same thing, time from their family. You know, it's a lonely road to being a great player, you know, time in that gym by yourself. And so that's the one that really has always stood out to me. The proof is in the sacrifice. And I try to live by that myself. You know, what do I want to be good at? Okay. All right. I got to sacrifice, you know, I got to sacrifice Netflix at night and watch this film. You know, I got to sacrifice, you know, scrolling my phone and making sure I get that time to read to my daughter at night before she goes to bed. So I think we all, to be successful in any walk of life, you got to give something up. What are you willing to sacrifice to get there?
Oh, that's a great phrase right there. I like that. And I'm going to ask this. So I'm going to piggyback on this. Now, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Man, the best piece of advice I've ever been given would probably be, you know, kind of stay true to what you believe. You know, I think, you know, early on in coaching, you look at so many guys that just maybe come into the profession around the same time you do, and they advance, you know, very quick for whatever reason. And, you know, you're looking like, man, I'm really busting my hump here. My team has been successful. You know, I feel like I've done a good job. You're just hoping somebody recognizes that. And, you know, I saw a lot of guys that I came into the profession with around the same time. You know, they maybe lost that fire or lost that love for what they were doing because they didn't maybe advance as quickly as others. So, you know, I would say just stay true to what you believe, you know, really continue to work. And ultimately, I think people do see that, you know. People want to be around winners, you know, and again, it may take longer for you, but it doesn't mean that that it's not going to happen. And so, you know, I would advise any young coach, you know, stay true to who you are, continue to work hard, don't be discouraged. You know, your break is coming, you know. And you know, for me, you know, I didn't play Division I. You know, I was able to just make some really genuine connections with people. And I was just fortunate enough that those people then thought of me when certain jobs became available. And so I wouldn't be in the position I'm in if it wasn't for, you know, staying true to that and continuing to just do a good job and trust and believe that people will recognize that at some point, and you'll get your opportunity.
Yep, I truly believe that, and I agree with you 100% on that. Just stay true to yourself, but, you know, stay with it, and you know, stop. You know what? Somebody always talked about it. Just, you know, keep looking straight ahead. Like, if you worried about what everybody else is doing, that's not for success in this business a lot of times.
Yeah.
If and you're not a self-promoter. You've never been like I said, I've been watching you for a long time. But if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
3 adjectives to describe myself. I would say loyal, trustworthy, and passionate. Those would be the 3 things. I think I've always tried to pride myself on being, loyal to the people who are great friends, who have shown a genuine interest in me. Those are the people I've always tried to stay connected with. So often in the profession, you meet people that come across your path at different times, and it's just about, a transactional relationship, introduce them to somebody, help them do something. But over the years, you find some people that are true friends. And I would say I've always tried to stay loyal to those people, regardless of where I am or, what level I'm coaching. Trustworthy, I think, I try to be a stand-up guy, man, do things the right way, go about my business the right way in a very honest and straightforward manner. And, that may not always be good, that may not always be helpful. Sometimes I truly believe some people would rather not hear the truth, or rather, you kind of skirt around it. But, I try to be truthful and be very trustworthy with the people that I am working with, working for, or I'm close to. And then passionate, man, I have a great passion for the business and that part of coaching that we all signed up for, helping young men. And I think sometimes that passion, it can wear you down. You want to help somebody so bad that when they don't, maybe listen to your advice, or they don't kind of go in the direction you're trying to help them go, it becomes like personal almost, like it's your fault. So I think that passion, has driven me the passion to help young people has driven me throughout these 17 years, but it also can wear on you a little bit too. And maybe that's why I'm like, getting some gray hairs now and stuff like that. But I have great passion for helping young men, through coaching basketball. I wouldn't be where I am without William Wells, who was my coach at St. Francis. Mike Rhodes, obviously, coached me at Randolph-Macon, and now I'm fortunate to work with him a second time. But even as an adult, Chris Mooney, like Jim Larinaga, other coaching peers I've had, people have always impacted me through basketball, and I try to and do the same thing, and Carlin Hartman, a guy who's at the University of Oklahoma now, he was actually the older assistant coach when I first got bumped up on the road at Richmond. And, he was the one that really sat me down and talked to me about that. We had similar backgrounds, single moms, and just how like coaches had helped our lives. And he was like, man, that's why we're here. And, when you're, 25, 25 years old, you're so competitive, you don't think about that part of it as much. But, I thank him for getting me to see that and reminding me of that very early on. And that's just another thing that stuck with me throughout.
Well, great stuff. And quality, those are 3 great adjectives as well. And Colin Hartman actually spoke a lot about his time at Richmond. And you would definitely mention when he came on the show. So, and it's interesting that you brought his name up as well. But he definitely talked about his time at Richmond a lot. And speaking of that, like, what qualities do you value? Because you talked about what, your adjectives are, but what qualities do you value in the people with whom you spend time?
Yeah, I just think, being honest and sincere. I think for whatever reason in our profession, we can all get turned in different directions. Even, we're all supposed to be working towards the same goal, but sometimes everybody has a different idea of how we're going to get there. And, people want to advance in the profession. They want to become head coaches. They want to get to the highest level, whatever it may be, and you lose that sense of honesty and sincerity in what we're trying to do. And I think that, to me, has always stood out, because when you have a great staff, everything goes well. When you have and I was fortunate enough to be a part of a staff where there was, definite, everybody was honest, everybody was sincere about how they went about their business and what they were trying to accomplish. Another thing was just like everybody, every day they showed up, it was to get that program better, nothing else. And so that would be a quality, that I think I would look for, guys that just pour in to the task at hand, and there's no ulterior motives. Those are things I value, and guys that just have a strong work ethic. I think Chris Mooney used to say this to some of to the team when I worked for him, that one of the worst qualities of a man is laziness. A man could have, one of the worst qualities a man could have is just being lazy. And so I think, the best coaches are, internally driven, because a great assistant coach, you're not going to get praise. You don't get the wins. You're not going to be the one in front of the camera celebrating when something goes well, or, a big recruit, or, a big win, whatever it may be. But, anybody who's been in coaching knows that all those great teams have some people behind that's really been doing a lot of work. And you have, as an assistant coach, you have to take pride in that, and be willing to know that the work I'm doing when nobody's watching is impacting this program at a high level. And so I think having a great work ethic would be another quality that I would look for in people I want to surround myself with.
Well, all great qualities right there. What person or persons and or event has had the most influence on your life?
I mean, if you're talking about just people in general, I would say my grandmother. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the same household with her. And at a very early age, she talked of ownership and, being a homeowner, and, pushing yourself, and making sure you want to go to college, even though she wasn't a college graduate herself. But those are things that she instilled in me early on. And now I look back on the conversations that I've had with her, and still see how they greatly impacted me today. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great coaches who have all kind of given me little tidbits and things that have helped me in life. And to be honest, man, some of the greatest moments that I've had are with, sometimes it's the assistant coaches in the profession that are friends, the guys that actually do open up and let hey, even though we all say our team's great, we love what we're doing, right? That'll kind of be a little bit more honest with you, be a little unmasked, if you will, with you in a different sense. And so, one of my friends, close friends in the profession, a guy by the name of Kamani Young, he and I have had a lot of life talks with. He has a very unique history, and even with his own family, some of the stuff that he's dealt with and persevered. He's a guy that when I've hit rough spots, I actually kind of talk to him and lean on him a lot. So that's the first one that pops in my mind, with regard to in the business and the profession, I think. But it's so many guys like that. It's so many great people, so many guys in coaching that you always build these bonds with. And like I said, you'd be surprised that the network and the fraternity that coaching is, when you hit a rough spot, how many guys will reach out to try to pick you up. And again, just another side of the profession that people I don't think get to really see all the time.
So true, man. Look, what energizes you and brings you excitement?
Man, I mean, at the end of the day, winning. you know, I still there's no greater joy than winning, and there's no greater agony than defeat. And as coaches, I think the longer you're in the profession, you appreciate the wins less, and the losses stick with you more. But I mean, that motivates you. That part of coaching. We're not competitive as athletes anymore, so I think that competitive part, is you get a chance to experience and fulfill that part of you there. And the other thing is just, like I said, man, helping somebody else achieve their ultimate goal and dream. If I can be a small part in a young man's development as a future husband, father, professional player, if I can help him change the trajectory of his life, like I said, that's what a lot of coaches, have done to help me. And, trying to get guys to see that, hey man, this little round ball that you put through that hoop, can greatly change the trajectory of your life. And in more ways than one, it's not make it become a pro or bust. There's so many ways that basketball can help them. And like I said, those are the two things that motivate me more than ever, every day, to just try to continue to help the program win and, help the next young man, reach his ultimate goal and dream.
Great stuff right there. Now, I like asking this question at the end, even though, like, a lot of guys won't change their career path. It's not that it's about changing your career path, but it's about, like, knowing what you know now. Like, what would you tell your younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
And I would say the one thing I would tell my younger self is to be a little bit more patient with young players. I think, as I said before, sometimes we can see the potential or the promise in that young man, maybe before he can kind of see it in himself. And I think very early in my career, I was just really hard on some guys, trying to like push them to see it. And instead of just, really just talking with them and trying to get them to see it in a different way. One of the guys that comes to mind, a guy I was fortunate enough to help coach at the University of Richmond, a guy by the name of Justin Harper. Justin, man, he was a late bloomer, probably like a 2-star, 3-star recruit. I think he ended up being like a 3-star in the end. And after 4 years at Richmond, he was the 32nd pick in the draft. And, I think early on in his career, I was just so hard on him because I saw the great amount of potential in everything that he had. And, he was just so up and down, and it wasn't a level of consistency that you would think a guy with his size and his ability would have. And it wasn't for a lack of effort. It wasn't like he wasn't trying. It wasn't like he wasn't really pouring into being good. It just took a little bit longer for him, than probably we would have hoped. And he had a great career, but he had an unbelievable senior season. And, we just thought that he could have kind of put a couple of those seasons together. That's how good we thought he was, and, how good of a player he is. He's still playing to this day. But like, looking back on it, it's a couple of guys that I coached during that time where, I forgot I forgot that I was a player not that long ago. I was so, man, you're a coach, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Hey man, you got to see it, get there, when I should have probably just been a little bit more patient with those guys. So that's the one thing I always look back on and wish I would have done a little bit better.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Hey, man, I want to thank you again, Jamal, for like being a guest on the show and being Unmasked. Anything you want to lead the people with before we go?
And I would just say, well, I thank you first and foremost for having me. Again, I think this is an unbelievable platform and a great opportunity for people to kind of pull back the mask and see all the other sides of that are a part of college basketball. So many great stories, great people throughout the profession. The one thing I would leave everybody with, and this is probably another saying, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. And again, as you start your grind, you young coaches or people in the in the profession at whatever level, don't get caught up or focused on how quickly somebody else is moving or what someone else is achieving, because their success doesn't mean that you can't have success as well. Take great pride in what you're doing and just stay down, man. Stay down in what you're doing. Keep pushing yourself to move forward. And again, your time will eventually come. But I think we all can lose ourselves a little bit as we compare ourselves to others. And then we miss how blessed that we really are where we, in the positions that we are in currently. So that would be my one little nugget, man, I leave with everybody today.
Well, look, you're welcome for coming on the show. And thank you for dropping that last nugget, as well as all of the nuggets you dropped today. And then I want to thank the viewers for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time, and stay safe.